This Sportz Blitz podcast is brought to you by LMG. Grow your business through logo design, paper products, and video production. Visit leemarketing.net to learn more.
Welcome back to Sportz Blitz Live, presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and S&S Discount Tire. This segment brought your way by Sperlin Recycling. Check them out on the web at SperlinRecycling.com or go out and see them on Highway 9 out in Equality, Alabama. Brad and Samantha Sperlin for all your recycling needs. If you need demolition work done out on your property, you need an estimate done, make sure you go out or call them. They'll come out and do that for you and take care of it and take it off your mind. But a lot of your junk laying around could actually be turned into cold, hard cash. So make sure you gather all that up and take it out to Sperlin Recycling. Now I want to go back to the Dane Sharp Attorney at Law hotline and welcome in Michael Skotnicki, the author of Auburn's Unclaimed National Championships, a book that has just been recently put out. Michael, thanks so much for being part of the program tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me as a guest.
Well, Michael, again, a very interesting topic that we want to talk about here tonight, and I can't wait to read the book. I'm an Auburn fan. Luke over here, my cohort, is an Alabama fan, but I think he's as interested as well. In what Alabama has done over there with their PR department and going back after the 92 season and really capturing some of the championships that they didn't quite promote at one point in time. And, you look through and you list a ton of Auburn championships that Auburn could claim but chooses not to. And, Michael, this is just an interesting topic. How did you get on that, and how did you come around to writing a book about it?
Well, I mean, it's just been a topic that I've had some interest in over a number of years. And, like a lot of Auburn fans, I had some notes on this and hadn't really studied it in any detail until I noticed that this summer that Texas A&M went back before joining the SEC this fall. They went back over the summer and they claimed national championships for the 1919 and 1927 seasons to add to one that they had previously claimed. And these are based on retroactive selectors, which are people who in the current day or maybe back to the 70s went back and ranked teams prior to the Associated Press poll beginning in 1936. And so then I noticed that the University of Minnesota claimed a national championship this past summer for the 1904 season. And so, I thought, well, let me look more into this and see, because I think Auburn can have, more than two. And I studied what other schools have done, and I noticed the University of Tennessee, much like Auburn, has one BCS championship. They have one Associated Press national championship, but Tennessee claims four other national championships based on, you would call, retroactive selectors. Of course, Alabama has, a number of BCS and Associated Press national championships, but they also claim five from retroactive selectors. So, I thought, well, let's see what Auburn could do into this. And so that I started compiling more and more information, and I thought, well, there's a whole lot here. And so I started, writing this. I'm an attorney. I've also got a master's degree in Auburn, and I've written a thesis, and I've done a lot of writing over the years, and thought, let me just write a book on this and see if I can, come up with something. And it was fairly, good. I contacted David Housel and sent him a draft of it, and he was very positive, although he's not, he doesn't go to the extent that I do, but he thought that I made a compelling case, and he thought that also it was a good history of Auburn University football. And so last fall in November, I put the book out, and just over the months, it's gotten more and more attention.
Well, we've got Michael Skotnicki on the Dane Sharp Attorney at Law hotline, and Michael, frankly, why has Auburn not claimed these? Let's get down to the brass tacks, and Who's responsible for this? With all these universities going back and doing this, I know Luke and I had conversations that, at some point in time when you start claiming things that are so old that people go, well, my goodness, it didn't have as much merit. But why has Auburn not done this, and who is responsible for it?
Well, probably, I have to, you give credit to Alabama and their sports information director, who I think it was in '86 actually went back and added these 5 national titles. And I have no problem with them doing that. So I just think that Auburn wasn't as bold to do that. Other schools have done it. Southern Cal added a national championship for 1939 back in 2004. Notre Dame counts retroactive titles. The athletic director is responsible for it. I really don't think anybody at Auburn has really brought it up for a serious conversation until now. But I've told people I feel, and I think I give credit to the University of Alabama. There's a saying that past is prologue, and that means basically you look to the past and you can see the future. And what Alabama has done is basically said, look, we have an entire history of championships, and it goes all the way back to 1926, and we expect more. And I think Auburn has basically won a lot of football games in a lot of years that they could have been to be declared national champions, but they won't count those. And so it looks like a program that, as Gene Chizik said in 2010, 53 years, baby, since 1957. And basically, he's seemed to be saying once in a lifetime.
That's right.
If you look at Auburn's history, they can go back as far as 1910 and count a national championship.
Well, Michael, which one of these do you think is the most egregious in terms of being left off the list? I mean, I know 2004, you have 2004 in there, but I don't think I don't think it'd be right for Auburn to go back and claim that one. I mean, again, we had a system in place. Boise State's been left out to dry before. Utah's been left out to dry before. Auburn, you can say it's right or it's wrong or whatever. 2 teams played for a title, and one of them won it, and that's the end of the story. But I think you can go back to some of these others. I don't know anything about 1913. And quite frankly, even though I'm an Alabama fan, I don't even care much about the ones that were named by the Farmer's Almanac or whatever. I understand, and I think I get what you're saying, too, about how because Alabama in the 80s recognized this, it helped establish this aura of domination and championships that has probably lifted Alabama a little bit today.
Yeah, I think that's right, and there's no one that says that Alabama won the national championship in 1926 other than a retroactive selector. But it's valid. There are a number of really recognized retroactive selectors, and really this 1913 team. The NCAA doesn't award national championships, but they recognize some, and they recognize 3 teams as kind of based on retroactive selections as a national champion for 1913. And if you can kind of get your mind around the idea that more than one team can be a national champion, that's certainly true. That in the era when you don't have a playoff and it's hard to say who really is, it really becomes a popularity contest.
It was incredibly political in those times. I mean, as an Alabama fan, I know my parents talk about the 1966 year. They've written a book about it, The Missing Ring. I mean, Alabama's undefeated. Michigan State, Notre Dame tied, and they share a national championship. Something doesn't seem right about that either. But you talked about Texas A&M. I find that really interesting, and I guess my first thought was Texas A&M decided this year or last year to claim some championship from way back when. And I'm wondering if they said, okay, we can get away with claiming this now because we're moving to the SEC and it's a whole new day. They don't really know our history, and we'll just sort of throw it into the media guide, and nobody will ever know the difference. If they had stayed in the Big 12, do you think they would have started claiming that championship?
Well, I do think there was a factor coming into the SEC. I do. It gave them an opportunity to start fresh.
Well, again, I want to go back to the question I asked a minute ago. Which of the championships that you reference in the book do you think is the one that's most warranted to be recognized by Auburn, and will Auburn ever recognize it?
Well, I'll say this. Really the one that stands out the most, because I was getting around to the point, the NCAA recognizes 3 teams as national champions, or at least having a credible claim. University of Chicago, Harvard University, and Auburn in 1913. And the NCAA recognizes that, but Auburn won't claim it.
Why? I mean, that not to cut you off, Michael, but I'm looking at it here on the NCAA website, and it's clearly stated: Auburn, Chicago, and Harvard, 1913. Auburn 8-0, Chicago 7-0. Amos Alonzo Stagg was the head coach at Chicago. Mike Donahue was the head coach at Auburn, and then at Harvard it was Percy Haughton. So you've got three champions. Why would Auburn not claim that?
I really don't know. And what I hear from some people, and you will appreciate this, is that, and I think this is really, really awful, some Auburn people who are maybe much powerful than myself don't want to be like Alabama. And if they think that this is something that would make them like Alabama, it must not be a good thing. Well, and I think that's backward thinking.
Well, it is backward thinking, because to me, you're only selling your own program short. I mean, if Auburn were just going back, and if they were 9-1 and some publications said they were this and they claimed that, I understand that. But, I mean, you've got factual evidence to back this up right here. Well, I mean, is this saying – I mean, it's like Auburn saying that whatever happened that year didn't count. I mean, and those guys that played football and won those 8 football games that year, well, we're just not going to recognize what you did that year. Yeah,
and, the amazing thing is that they had a great team that year. I mean, I spent a devoted chapter of that book, and Coach Donahue was a great coach. I mean, he was in the inaugural class of the College Football Hall of Fame. John Heisman, who coached at Auburn and then later many years at Georgia Tech, he didn't get in until 3 years later. So, I mean, Donahue was a great coach. He won a lot of football games at Auburn, and from 1904 to 1922, and really lifted Auburn up into great football heights. I mean, they played Ohio State. They played Army. They played the Carlisle Indians and beat them. They played out at the University of Texas. And, they've forgotten that history, and I'm trying to bring it back to the forefront.
And it is very weird, because I have seen some Alabama sites that say Alabama could even claim 4 or 5 more national championships. And I'm like, hey, again, to me, it all sort of begins when the AP started naming national champions. And I know that it wasn't perfect then. I mean, sometimes they named a champion, and the UPI was involved. Sometimes they named one before the bowl season, because the game's evolved into something much more different now. And then, people forget that the bowl system we had wouldn't allow some teams that should be playing each other to play each other because of bowl tie-ins. The BCS comes around, and it fixes the problem. It fixes it more than people want to give it credit for, in my opinion. I think the BCS got it right more often than not. And now we got a playoff system coming. And I think that, really you should look about 1936 and up. I mean, even an Alabama fan, I mean, hey, I'm not going to remember any of the 1941 team, I think Alabama claims, that may have had like 3 losses. I mean, again, some of these are a little bit goofy, and I get kind of where the Auburn powers that be are coming from, in the sense that, you almost get more ridicule than praise if you went back right now and claimed one.
But my question is, why did 1913, and then you look at 1983, I know Auburn lost 1 game, but so did Miami and Nebraska. All 3 are recognized here on the NCAA website, Auburn, Miami, Nebraska, as national champ. I just don't understand why, as history moves along with publications, that you don't claim what is rightfully yours. I mean, to me, I think this is a major blunder on the public relations department at Auburn. Not right now, but over the years, Mike.
Well, I think they haven't always had good leadership there.
Understatement.
And one thing I talk about in my book is that how basically Alabama just came and passed Auburn. They had a head start as far as being football excellence, and Auburn got a new president who wasn't really in favor of college athletics. And when Coach Donahue left in 22, they just downgraded the football program. While at the same time, President Denny over at Alabama hired Wallace Wade. And they decided they were really going to emphasize the football program. And the paths of those two universities and their football programs kind of diverged for about 30 years. You can look and see, the difference in the programs, and it goes back to 1922.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I tell you what, this is interesting. We want people to pick up the book and buy it. The ones that I see on the NCAA site that Auburn does not claim, 1913, 1983, and 1993. Auburn, Florida State, Nebraska in 1993 were recognized by the NCAA. So I don't know. Is there some more on there? I know that you said 1958 could possibly be claimed as well.
Yeah, 1910 and 1914 as well, yeah.
Well, interesting stuff there. Last question, Mike, do you think any of these will ever be retroactively claimed? It's like Luke said at this point, why would you? But, why would Texas A&M now? Why would
because Texas A&M got a new start.
Well, they did, but, I mean, if it's in the record books, why aren't you claiming it?
Well, I think there's a chance that in the 100th anniversary here this fall that Auburn could claim the 1913 national championship. There's some talk amongst people, to get that done this fall. I don't know whether that'll happen or not, but I'm continuing to try and push that. And I think on a Twitter feed, Jay Jacobs was asked about it by somebody else and said that's another topic for another day. So.
Well, all right, Mike. Well, we really appreciate you being on the program tonight. Interesting talk, and we look forward to talking to you again very soon.
Yeah, the book's available at AuburnsUnclaimed.com and also J&M Books in Auburn and Little Professor Bookstore in Homewood in Birmingham area.
And Mike, I want to make reference to this, that as much heck as we get for Harvey Updike, an Alabama fan is trying to get some publicity for this book. I brought this to everybody's attention over here. I just want a little bit of credit.
Well, I appreciate it, and like I said, the purpose of this book is not to, is not to say anything bad about Alabama. It's to basically say, hey, Auburn needs to do a little better job of acting like Alabama.
Exactly. And I, as the Auburn side of this, completely agree 110%. Mike, thanks so much for being part of the program.
Glad to be on.
Thank you so much. And look, I want to say one thing. If you had a granddad or a great-granddad that played on a team at Alabama and they went undefeated and the NCAA recognized it, but Alabama said, you know what, we just don't recognize that. I mean, how would you feel?
Listen, I'd be upset.
That's like saying Auburn saying to 1913 that we're glad you went 8-0, but we're not going to recognize. Why?
But again, I go back to, and here's the problem. I think it goes back to it's almost too late. It's almost done. But
when is too late now?
It's hard to say. But then there are other things that, 1913 to me should be pushed. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Yeah, I do too.
But something like 1993 when Auburn's on probation and they didn't even go to the SEC title game nor a bowl game. I mean, I get that. But it's on the list. And when they're lumped in together, it'd almost be good to have. I think this petition he's talking about for the 100-year anniversary, just get the 1913 one. And I think that's a good move. I think that'd be brilliant. 100-year anniversary, I think that'd be great. But if you try and lump them all in there with like 1993 and 2004, where nobody's going to give Auburn credit for that.
I think you can still recognize those as perfect seasons. You
can
say,
recognize
we're
perfect
season. We went undefeated. Move on. Caller, go ahead. You're on Sportz Blitz.
Hey, this is Bill. I want to try you a trivia question.
All right, Bill, give it a shot.
Is it 8?
It's not 8. Not 8, but if we don't get a call in the next few minutes, call back, okay?
Okay.
Bill, what do you think? You're a big Auburn fan. What do you think? Auburn dropped the ball on this over the years, not claiming what's rightfully theirs?
I believe you're absolutely right. They should have claimed the one in '83 for sure, when they were the third ranked team, and the two ahead of them
lost,
went down,
Yeah.
And Auburn should have been ranked number 1 then. In '93, I can understand not being ranked number 1 because it was on probation. But 2004, they didn't get a chance. But there's something down there that we could go back if we wanted to. We could be like Alabama and go back and claim them,
Well, again, it's your program. You can do with it what you want. But Bill, thanks so much for calling.
Okay, have a good night.
Thank you so much.
And wait a minute, I know we got to go to break, but and I understand Auburn in the 2004 argument. I get what you're saying. At the same time, I mean, how many times
but
this happened?
But I got no problem with that because they only recognize at USC. 2004 to me, we went undefeated. We got hosed a little bit because we played in the toughest conference, and since then we've won SEC, we've won national champions since. Hey, okay, stuff happens in life. That's tough. But '83, we're recognized.
But '83, here's the catch about '83, and the only thing that I can think about it, and again, you and I are probably too young to even get in this debate, but maybe Auburn just wasn't political enough about it. I mean, because really, I remember that Nebraska-Miami game being hyped as the game.
No, it was.
And I think it was even 1 versus 5 or 1 versus 4. And the Auburn-Michigan game was a big game, but it was also a pretty boring game, if you remember.
Yeah, it was 9-6. It was 9-6.
But it was a pretty boring game. Or was it 9-7 or 9-6?
No, 9-7.
Okay.
9-7. That's
Okay.
right. 9-7.
So
it was 7-6, and he kicked the field goal.
And so I think that the way that game ended, and I'm not saying this is right. I'm just saying back then that's how it was done. And again, I go back to 1966 when Alabama's undefeated and Michigan State and Notre Dame play. They each tie each other, and they share a championship.
I just don't think you catch. I see what you're doing. We got to go to break. But the last thing I'll say, I don't think you catch a lot of grief from opposing fan bases or anybody else when you go when you claim something. They go, "Oh, you can't claim that." Just go pull up the NCAA website and look at it. We're there. So if you start claiming things that your name's not beside, then people start saying, well, y'all are, that's a little stretch. You're just a little bogus. But if they claim it here, you ought to claim it as a university. To me, you're just dropping the ball. You're selling your own program short when you don't do that.
Well, I go back to '83. Maybe they weren't
political
PR enough.
That's exactly right. So 256-234-6464, 1-800-782-0108. Stay tuned. More Sportz Blitz Live presented by JR's and SNS Tire right after this.